Today, you're in for a treat, literally, because we've got Chef AJ, one of my favorite chefs, good friend of mine, and doing amazing things in the plant-based world on the show. And we're going to talk about her new book that's coming out shortly called Chef AJ's Sweet Indulgence, Guilt-Free Treats Sweetened Naturally with Fruit. Now, these treats will be able to be eaten if you're following the program that we teach for rheumatoid arthritis, as long as you've graduated to be able to eat these by healing your gut first. But let's get into that shortly after we welcome Chef AJ. How you going?
Hey, Clint, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, it's exciting. I think we've only done one of these once before where you've been the guest and I've been the host. And we've done a ton of the other way around where you've been the host and I've been the guest.
Absolutely. I like being the host better because then I can talk less.
Well, I'm not going to let you off the hook today. You're going to do a lot of the talking. We're going to hear all about your new book. So I've just given everyone the title. They've got an idea. What was the inspiration behind creating this new book?
Well, the thing is I used to be a pastry chef, believe it or not, in a Los Angeles restaurant called Sante. I was the executive vegan pastry chef, but it wasn't a vegan restaurant. It wasn't oil-free. It wasn't sugar-free. It's just it so happens that my desserts were. So in order to get the job, I basically auditioned and I just went in and I baked for a day and they said what they liked. And then they hired me and they really had no clue for years that I wasn't using oil or I wasn't using refined sugar or salt. And people have always wanted these recipes. And also they wanted all my dessert recipes in one place. But the main thing is what I've been hearing from people who have supported me for years buying my books is they want a photo. And they don't just want a few photos. They want a photo with every single recipe. And when there's 156 recipes, it is no small feat to do that. So I hired one of the most talented vegan authors, food stylists, photographers, Hannah Kaminsky, who's a wonderful recipe creator and author in her own right. And we finally delivered what the public demanded, a photo with every single recipe.
And I'm looking at the front cover and it looks absolutely decadent. Oh my gosh. If people head over to Amazon, there's a pre-order ability. The book launches on the 27th of August, so very soon. And the front cover, what do we got there? What's on that front cover?
So it's funny that this made the cover. It really was a coincidence because there were so many wonderful photos to choose from. But coincidentally, the foreword is written by Dr. Neil Barnard of PCRM. And this is his favorite recipe. This is what started our relationship, as I had given him this cupcake once. And it worked out absolutely perfectly that this became the cover photo.
Yeah, lovely. Okay. Now, our audience need to really watch their gut health because they've been through a nightmare and back with joint pains and so on. And they go through a process where they heal their gut using specific fibers, exercise, optimizing omega-6 to 3 ratio to help reduce down inflammation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're a delicate bunch. Okay.
I hear that from a lot of people with different autoimmune conditions, for example.
Yeah. And so here's my question. Is it oil-free, these recipes?
Yes. So
it's oil-free.
Of course. So I have not knowingly consumed oil. I mean, obviously, if you're somebody's house or a restaurant, I don't know. But I've not intentionally consumed oil or used it since I first really heard from Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn in a lecture about becoming heart attack proof, how deleterious oil was to your cardiovascular health in general and your waistline in particular. So I haven't consumed or used oil in any cooking since August 1st, 2008. So none of my recipes have oil, not a drop, not a morsel, not a crumb. So I can 100% assure that. However, there are some recipes that are a little bit richer and decadent. So they will have whole food fats. There's a few recipes that have avocado, a few that have seeds, and a few that have nuts or nut butters. But there's a lot of them that have no added fats and that are very low in fat and low in calorie density as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, so I just want everyone to know that as long as you're following our program and you've been through the first 3 groups, that's Group A, Group B, and Group C on the reintroduction guide, then you'll be able to try each and every one of these recipes in Chef AJ's incredible 150 recipe book. Can you give us some examples of some of the recipes?
Absolutely. And what I'm trying to find, and I should have opened it to this page before, we rate each recipe based on sweetness, whether they're superbly sweet, moderately sweet, or subtly sweet, and how much fat they have, whether they have more fat, less fat, or really no added fat. So people can mix and match. So there are some decadent recipes that have things like nut butters and chocolate in them, but there's other recipes that are literally made from fruit, not even dates, like bananas or sweet potatoes or apples, for example.
Awesome. I know Melissa's going to get your book. Our kids, whenever they have birthday parties, always get a Melissa special. And it's usually something like you've got here. Maybe she can do 2 or 3 things where it's, as you said, really decadent. The other kids at the party don't even realize that it's vegan and no oil. And she uses some things like zucchini sometimes as a replacement for some common ingredients. And so she's going to love this.
Yeah. And here's the thing. So we write each recipe. This was brilliant. My book designer, Janine Elder, who's of Potato Wisdom, did this sweetness scale with the strawberries. And 1 strawberry means subtly sweet. But people eating the standard American diet may not even find it sweet enough. 2 strawberries mean nice and sweet, which is like perfect for my palate and many people's palate. And 3 strawberries are superbly sweet. So these would be just like the recipes that you're used to, in the standard American diet. With the fat, they're either low fat, semi-decadent, which has a moderate amount of fat, or rich and decadent, which would be like your traditional desserts. And people can mix and match. And, in addition to being oil-free, which, I'm not sure that matters so much to the general population, because I'm hoping people other than vegans and plant-based eaters will buy the book. It is free of refined sugar. So it's sweetened with the fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the whole fruit. So people who may never decide to become vegan, for whatever reason they're avoiding refined sugar, may be able to enjoy these recipes that are sweetened with things like dates, bananas, sweet potatoes, apples, things like that.
It really does sound like the perfect fit for our audience who have done the hard work. They've been through the healing process. They're at the end. And now they think, what can I have like once or twice a week, just as a little treat that feels really indulgent, that's not going to set me back. It's not going to cause joint pain. It's not going to ruin my gut. You've got whole foods. There's no oil.
No oil.
And it's
no salt. No salt,
Wow.
And honestly, of the 156, or I forget if it's 156 or 154, only 2 recipes have flour.
Wow. Okay.
So,
awesome.
Hey, do you want to hear something funny, Clint?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so you know what Dr. Goldhammer wanted me to call the book, but the publisher said no. He wanted me to call it Desserts That Won't Kill You.
I love it. Goldhammer's always good for a laugh, isn't he?
I wish he would take stand up with us one day, because he's a natural.
Yeah. All right. So are you going to do like a book tour, or how can people sort of, other than buy it on Amazon, can they meet you in person? Are you touring this around?
They can. And, I wish I could be more places. I've already done like my first job, which was in the Finger Lakes, which was just absolutely beautiful. If they go to chefaj.com, they'll get on my mailing list and I'll tell them where I'm going to be. But the next place I'll be is I'm going to be at Rancho La Puerta in Mexico, which is an amazing spa where I teach hands-on cooking. Then I will be going to New Jersey for one of the wonderful plant-based doctors event, Dr. Ron Weiss Farm Days, and I'll be doing recipes from the book. Then I'll be going to the Plantrition Conference, which will take place this year in Orange County, California. And then I will be headed out to, where is next? Oh, Los Angeles, where I'm originally from, at the South Bay Adventist Church. And I will be doing a dessert demo, actually. That's Sunday, October 6th. And they can taste 3 samples of my recipes. Then to the Stanford Inn in Mendocino, which is an amazing place. It's a vegan inn where you can actually bring your dog. And then off to True North for a few weeks. So that's what I've got planned so far.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. What has been different about creating this book for you to all your other books? Because you've got many, many books. How has this one felt different and excited you?
Well, it costs a lot more to produce because, like people don't realize color photos to be styled, to have the recipe made, to be lit, to be edited. That's a lot of money. So to do that for every recipe, it took a long time to make. Let me tell you what took even longer. And this might interest anybody interested in learning how to make desserts. I shot a video of every single recipe in the book, and that's only available as what we call a pre-order bonus, a pre-sale bonus. So if people buy the book before the deadline of New York Times bestseller, which is midnight on Saturday, August 31st, so they could have bought it months ago, they can buy it now. As long as they buy it before that date, save their receipt and send it to us through a form we have at a special website called sweetindulgencebook.com. They will get a video of every single recipe. And that's worth over $1,000 because I include my Sweet Indulgence Master Dessert class, which actually, when people took it, sold for $600. So that's a pretty sweet deal. So it took about a year to get everything ready.
Wow. So someone filmed you doing the prep for every one of these.
Absolutely. Not only did he film me, he had to edit it too, because, we didn't want to have every recipe to have to, we didn't want to have you watch, it bake it in the oven for 45 minutes, but absolutely. So you'll have a video for every recipe so you can follow it. It's like having me in your kitchen.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And that's also very, very pioneering. I've never heard of anyone doing this before. Was this your idea?
Yes and no. I mean, other people have done it. I know that Debbie Adler did it for her book, I believe it's called The Mediterranean Plate, but I don't know if anybody's ever done it for a dessert cookbook. And so maybe I'm the first.
Tell us about New York Times bestseller. So as a complete newbie to this.
Yeah. It's something you can put in your signature. At the end of the day, it's not like I'm going to put it on my tombstone because I'll probably end up being cremated, but it's an honor. It really just means, because there are books that sell more than New York Times bestsellers, because with the New York Times bestseller, all they care about is pre-sales in those first 5 days. So people, that doesn't mean that you can't have the most successful book that didn't make the list, but it's just something, we have mutual friends, Robbie and Cyrus made the list, Dr. Joel Furman. So, it's prestigious, but hey, it's not easy to do, is what I'm told. So we're trying.
I can imagine. Yeah. Do the Amazon sales somehow get reported? How does the New York Times actually understand?
So, this is not my wheelhouse. Robert Cheek knows more about this than anyone else because he became a New York Times bestseller with one of his books, The Plant-Based Athlete. But the pre-sales have to be from different places. So let's just say I had a ton of money and bought, 20,000 books on Amazon. It has to come from different sources. So it has to come from Amazon, as well as small boutique houses like A Seat at the Table, where if people buy it there, they can actually get it 2 days early and sign. Places like Barnes and Noble. So it has to come. Oh, also, the thing that I'll never understand is that the bookstore you buy it at has to be a New York Times reporting bookstore. They don't, people that have much bigger followings, that have publicists, they know a lot more about this than I do. So we're, with our small little team, we're trying to get the word out to get people to buy it in advance. I mean, if they're going to buy it, if they're not going to buy it, don't buy it. But if you're going to buy it, why not buy it in advance and get the incredible bonuses we're offering? That's what I think.
Exactly. That's a huge draw card. Definitely want to see how to make these meals, because if you're struggling at home and you don't do too much cooking, that'll make things so straightforward. What are you most excited about with regards to what's coming for everyone that they can now pre-order on Amazon?
I think that they'll be very happy that they maybe can be at a place in their life where they don't have to permanently dessert, because there are some options that are so healthy that, they're like eating oatmeal for breakfast. But the way I configure it into a pie, you could have your oatmeal and fruit for breakfast, and it's very healthy and delicious, or you can have my rustic strawberry pie, which is also oatmeal and fruit, but it looks like a tart.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Anything else about this? It just sounds like a no-brainer for my audience. If you've been following this channel or listening to this podcast for some time, here is your first opportunity that I've ever presented through one of my guests or any of our materials, where you've got wonderful, delicious, whole food, almost, except for just 2 recipes out of the 150 or so, completely whole food, delicious treat that includes fiber with no oil. It doesn't get much better than this. So why don't we get behind Chef AJ and support her and her mission here to spread the plant-based message and keep people healthy, and jump in and get this book pre-ordered before the 27th of August. That gives you a little bit of time.
31st. They have till the 31st, actually. for it to
Oh,
count.
till the
But the
31st.
sooner the
Right.
better. But most people in life do tend to procrastinate. So let's say the 27th.
Yeah, yeah. And let's support you on this, because this
Thank
is
you.
amazing. Excuse me. So other than the book, which I think we've given good awareness to, if anyone's keen, they'll be getting into it right now and going to the website and getting their copy. What else has been going on for you? I know you've been making some changes on the YouTube front. And first of all, let's also just take a moment to acknowledge the passing of Dr. McDougall. You and
Oh
I
my
didn't
gosh,
speak beforehand. That was very, very heart-wrenching.
devastating. Absolutely. And, I mean, in a lot of ways, he was the show. He was the heart of the show, because he was one of the first guests to have a monthly slot. He was there the whole time, the whole 4 years and 3 months. And what was unique about Dr. McDougall is I never told him to end. So in other words, I would have these meetings every Monday, and they go, "Well, tell him to be quiet." And I'm like, "Why would I tell Dr. McDougall to be quiet?" And he'd go up for 4 hours. And I am so grateful now that I listen to my intuition and just let the man talk, because now we have 51 wonderful episodes of him just speaking the truth. So yeah, that was really hard, obviously. And it still is hard, because it's quite unexpected.
Yeah. And you and I have both met him, you many more times than myself. I was just struck by just how down to earth and personal he was, and how he genuinely cares. And when I met him, I was in Santa Rosa, isn't it, where True
Mhm.
North is?
Yeah.
And he took time out of his schedule and rearranged some things to unexpectedly come by and meet me there and sit down with myself and Dr. Clapper, and the three of us just chatted for about half an hour about running businesses in the plant-based sphere and the challenges and so on. And it was a bit surreal that he'd come to meet me. I just felt I was very touched. I'll never forget that. But that's the sort of person that he was.
He was. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the YouTube channel now, what you were running every single day, every single weekday for, you said, over 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years and 3 months, over 2,000 episodes. And, when I look back, it's like, how did I do that? Because now that I'm not doing a show every day, the 2 days a week I do the show, it's like, oh my God, I got to get dressed. I got to take a shower. And yet I did it for, how many consecutive days, from March 20th, 2020 to June 30th, 2024.
Wow. But the impact that you had, you just reached so many people.
Yeah, part of me was, I didn't like set out to have a YouTube show or to certainly broadcast every day. But after it became a show or a daily thing, I got so many people that wanted to be on, and I just didn't want to say no to anybody in the plant-based space that wanted, a chance to tell people what they're doing.
And what do you think the biggest impact of that was?
Well, that's a good question. I think it gave people maybe the confidence sometimes to start their own channels, because they needed a break, a break, meaning like a chance, because sometimes it's scary to start out on your own, but they had some practice maybe coming on my channel, and they saw that people liked them and they resonated with what they said. So maybe that led them to do greater things sooner than they would have if they hadn't come on the show,
Yeah. And so with the extra time that you've got now, that you've reduced your YouTube.
No extra time on that. Oh, I see you really are a comedian. I thought that too. I thought, well, I'm going to have all this time, but that old saying, it's like it filled up right away. So it's different. So actually, I don't want to say what I'm doing now I like better, but what I'm doing now I feel is a better fit. So while I am certainly love hosting and I feel I do a good job, at the end of the day, my name is Chef AJ, not Host AJ. So now I'm back in the kitchen, making recipes, teaching people how to cook. And that's where my heart is, because I've been cooking, since I'm 7 years old, almost 60 years now. And for me, it's not hard because I've been doing it so long. But I feel like, when I teach things like weight loss, for example, there's recidivism. I'm sure even in your program, you teach the best program, but it's not always easy to do all the time. But with cooking, I feel like I can make somebody a good chef or a great chef. I really feel, especially because all the experience I had teaching the blind, and it's if you're sighted, it's going to be a lot easier for you to learn how to cook, right? And I feel cooking is just so fun. It's not sad. I'm not talking about anything sad. It's just, especially dessert. I mean, dessert makes people happy. Let's face it, right? I would hope it does.
And you've done this delicate sort of tightrope walk here of being in the weight loss sphere, being a leader in the weight loss area, and yet creating a
I
decadent.
know. Tell me about it. Some people feel I betrayed them, but here's the thing. I hear from people all the time. No, listen, if somebody can just make a decision that they're never going to eat dessert again, that is fantastic. I just don't know too many people that have been able to permanently desert dessert. And so what I've seen in all the years teaching the Ultimate Weight Loss Program and the Reboot Program is that eventually most people fall off occasionally. So what are they falling off to? Do I want them to fall off to, Baskin Robbins or McDonald's? Or do I want them to maybe fall off to a dessert that's date or nut sweetened, which even though it may be a little bit more calorically dense than eating an apple, at least it has water and fiber and vitamins and minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, micronutrients. And I feel like they'll get greater satiety than if they eat like a traditional Krispy Kreme donut or a Cinnabon. So the other thing to consider is that a lot of the people I work with, and maybe you too, they're in mixed relationships. They may be the only one in their family that's vegan, the only one that's oil-free or sugar-free. These desserts can be enjoyed by people, whether they're oil-free, sugar-free, vegan. They're also gluten-free, so that helps people that have that particular thing. So, it's just, I wanted to come up with this book in 2012, right after Unprocessed. I'm glad I didn't, because by waiting, I created a lot more recipes. And also, I proved that I could lose weight. Now, listen, I did not eat the peanut butter cupcake on the cover to lose the 60 pounds that I've kept off for like 10 years now. But a lot of the recipes in the book, I did eat to lose weight, like the blueberry millet muffin, the jam bars, and I still eat. Do I eat dessert every day, every meal of every day? No. However, I have it as an option for when I want it. And it's interesting because the impact of eating these desserts, even the ones that are date sweetened, is so different than when you eat white sugar. You don't have the constant cravings. You're satisfied with a reasonable sized piece because you experience satiety from the water and fiber. And all the years I was a sugar addict till the age of 43, drinking Coke Slurpees for breakfast with 8 pumps of vanilla syrup and Dr. Pepper big gulps. At the end of the day now, if I'm still a little bit hungry after dinner and I want to eat a little more, I'd rather eat chips and salsa. That's like, oh, by the way, there is a chips and salsa recipe in the dessert book, but it's a strawberry salsa.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I just want to rewind a little bit to at the start. You mentioned like you started out as the pastry chef and you auditioned into that role and was successful in getting it. Why at the time were you secretly making everything vegan and nobody knew? Were you right from a young age interested in plant-based or veganism, or how did this evolve and why?
I wasn't secretly making it vegan. Like they weren't there watching me not put the egg or put the oil in. I just cooked the way I knew how. So I became vegan at the age of 17. That was 47 years ago. I started baking at the age of 7 because I got an easy bake oven. You can't really call that baking though, because they came with these little mixes. All you did was add water and you put it in and this little light bulb would cook it. But I wasn't secretly making it vegan. I was just making it the way I knew. And it happened to be vegan. I think about it, Clint, like people that love meat, I don't know much about the analogs. I've tasted a few things from mycelium and it tasted just like meat to me. It was freaky. But a lot of people that insist on eating animal products, they may, who knows, maybe they'll eat the Impossible Burger or the Beyond Burger or even tempeh or tofu, but they may know the difference. They may not. But I guarantee that you could make a German chocolate cake with eggs and butter, and I'll give you mine, and I would venture to say that nobody would say, well, wait a minute, this one has the egg. And, you can't, desserts are such a great way to enroll people into plant-based eating because you're not relying on the egg and the butter for the flavor like you are if people want a steak is a steak. And maybe you can make a fake steak, but I'm not making a fake German chocolate cake. I'm making a real German chocolate cake in honor of Hans Diehl, another one of our wonderful doctors who we lost this last year.
Right.
Yeah.
That point about bringing people into the plant-based world via treats who are otherwise out eating anything but plant-based, I think is a really, really good one. Because when the children at again, coming back to our experience with treats is at kids' birthday parties. When the children experience my wife's cupcakes or the main birthday cake and they realize there's no eggs, no oil, and they love it, it suddenly makes them feel like, wow, I can do vegan. Like that's their exposure to vegan is just the cake. And they say, I want to be vegan. Some of them have said that. Like, wow, just because they've had something that they consider the pinnacle of their existence, which is a treat as a kid, and it doesn't require any animal products. I think that's a huge revelation. I think that's a great insight.
Absolutely. And I mean, okay, even the thing that people would think that understand cooking and baking, thinking that, okay, you can't make a meringue without egg whites, because that's how I was taught in the 7th grade of home economics. You whip the egg white and cream of tartar to make a meringue. Well, somebody figured out aquafaba, so I think that I would venture to say this is with all food, but since I'm the pastry chef, I'm just going to say it with dessert. I think that anything that anyone can make in the dessert world, I can make vegan, and almost anything I can make healthier. I mean, I can't promise 100% like a fried donut, like if you had an apple fritter and fried it, it's going to be exactly the same. But I'm pretty sure with enough time that I would be able to come up with something very close, and definitely vegan, easy, but without the oil, sugar, and salt. The flour is really, believe it or not, maybe the hardest of all of it, to take out in certain things if you're looking for texture.
Awesome. Very talented indeed. But you're not just talented at making these incredible sweets and recipes and so on. I want people to know a little bit about your entertainment background, because I'm sure it doesn't come up that much on interviews with you, because
it doesn't, unless they've watched my channel and seen me on the Tonight Show. Yeah, so there's.
Let me set the platform. Hang on, give yourself a break. I know you don't want to do all the talking, so let me set the platform here. So you and I connected by talking about doing some stand-up comedy classes together that you introduced me to. This was after, I guess, we'd done a couple of interviews on your YouTube channel and we'd bantered a little bit. Now, you're extremely talented at stand-up and improv. You've been doing this for a very long time. You even performed more than once, I believe, on national US television live. You've taken classes with some of the best, performed at some of the best clubs. Tell us, how did you get into this? First of all, how did this begin?
Yeah. Okay. So let me rewind the clock back to my showbiz history. So when the first time I was on television, I was in high school. I was on the Gong Show. Do you know of the Gong Show? Have you heard of that show? With Chuck Barris was the host. This was way before America's Got Talent and Simon Cowell. This was a show. I think I was 15, and you came on and you did like a variety act. Like it might have been something like singing, but it could have been something outrageous. And so then there was 3 judges. I remember when I was on, maybe I was 14. I could have been younger. It was J.P. Morgan. It was Artie Simon and Alan Ludden were the judges. So I was on this show, The Gong Show. And I was bit early by the TV bug. And when I was 14, I was on the Tonight Show with Joey Bishop. Joey Bishop was the guest host for Johnny Carson when Johnny Carson, I believe he took Mondays off or when he didn't make it. And that was just, I was 14 and I'm like, seeing myself on TV, and I just liked it. I didn't really have a lot of formal training really until I was about 25. I did a couple of commercials. One played during the Super Bowl. I mean, I never quite pursued it to the degree. I mean, now that I'm almost 65, it's like, why didn't I, try harder? But also because, people at some point have to they don't have to, but they want to make a living. They want to live indoors, And so, showbiz is a very precarious thing. Yes, talent is important, but there's just this other piece, the secret sauce. And I think a lot of it has to do with stick-to-itiveness, because I believe that whether it's your program for, reversing an autoimmune disease and healing the gut, or when I do weight loss programs or being successful in stand-up comedy, I think the underlying thread is to not give up if that is your dream, because things don't always happen at the same pace for people or as quickly as we want them. But I think if you have some resiliency and consistency, you will have some success. Will everyone have 100% success in every area? Will everyone win an Academy Award? Will everyone have no symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis? Will everyone get down to their thinnest ideal weight? Maybe not. It's still a possibility, but I think if you don't give up, because if you give up, you're never going to reach the goal, right? I mean, that's a given. But I feel like, it's never too late, and just keep trying if you love it and if you want it. And, I haven't given up yet. I mean, I still have to work, but anytime there's an opportunity to take a class or do a show, I'm in, because I think it's so fun. It is so fun to do comedy. I mean, making people laugh is the greatest gift in the world, I think.
Yes. You and I are both blessed with two areas of contribution, which is making people laugh. Because for anyone who doesn't know, I've been doing stand-up for 23 years, and I worked last weekend, and, I'm regularly still doing this, although at a much, much reduced output, because I have my other thing, like you, a calling and a gift, if you like, or knowledge, skills, to help people with a specific problem for their health. And so you and I have privately talked about how quiet, but like that actually is like something we'd really love to be doing more of. But then this feels like more contribution, and you get pulled into, I guess, also a requirement to put food on the table and to pay for the mortgage or whatever it might be. And reality has to kick in. So I think you and I both flip-flop between where we think our attention should be. Also, have some regrets from the past as well. Like, I was getting on TV a little bit, and then suddenly rheumatoid arthritis hit me. And then I couldn't write jokes because I couldn't hold a pen. And I couldn't get on stage because one time I had to get helped onto the stage to stand. And like, you can't, these things come into our lives, and you think, well, what is the bigger purpose for my life? Is it just to become really well known and make a living traveling around telling jokes? Or is it changing people's lives with their health, whether it be through diet and cooking and inspiring people with their weight and physical appearance, or helping autoimmune conditions? Life's interesting like that. We don't know, do we? We just go with our intuition and where, I guess, we feel we're most suited.
Absolutely. You never know. You never know where the wind is going to blow you. That is actually, I was already thinking, you got me thinking in the comedy vein when you said you couldn't hold a pen to write a joke. And I was already thinking that's almost a joke right there.
Well, this is what we've talked about, isn't it? When we're in the comedy classes together, it's like,
and that's the other thing. It's funny that you say that, because I actually enjoy being in the class as much as performing, maybe even more, because I think it's not so much that, oh, look how funny I am and maybe you're paying me. It's the creative process. It's coming up with that joke. That is what I love more than anything. And that's why I love improv, because in improv, you get many opportunities in a performance to come up with something, and you only have to do it once. That's because I'm lazy. Yeah.
You've actually done stand-up at some of the health conferences that you've attended in the past, haven't you?
Well, I don't call it stand-up. I call it hosting, right? And I even did it in Cuca. I mean, because it sounds better to say, hey, would you like to hire me to host? And then the stand-up just kind of gets mingled in, especially when there's delays. It's always in my back pocket, right? And I think I'm a good host because I don't make it about me. So if we're running not on time, it's like I'm hurrying it along. But when there's those breaks and the AV isn't working, I have the ability to riff. I love riffing. That's my favorite thing. So at the Plantrician Conference last year, they hired me for this instead. At first I thought, oh gosh, I'm not doing a plenary for me. But then I thought, oh my God, this is even better. This was a separate class for CEUs for like 100 healthcare people, like doctors and pharmacists and nurses. And they had to pay like $125 extra to get these CEUs. And it was like working a cabaret, I was cooking too. It's like, I'll tell you exactly. I forgot about this guy, Edward, God bless him. So in the year 2000, there was a vegan cooking school in Santa Monica, not far from where I lived. It was founded by Ryan Flegel, who now has a resort in one of the islands. He has a vegan bed and breakfast, but he was like 18 or 19, a college student at Santa Monica College at the time. And he founded this cooking school called Dick and Jane Cook Vegetarian on Pico. And he had all the great chefs at the time come there, like the people that had the restaurants in LA, like Akasha Richmond, who was Michael Jackson's personal chef and owns Akasha, and David Spain from Follow Your Heart, and Tanya Petrovna from Native Foods. And I would take these classes. They were so inexpensive, $25 for 3 hours on a Saturday morning, and it would include a full meal. And I would, I was always class clown. I was always a smart aleck. I would be in the back, just like cracking jokes and stuff. And so Edward, who was organizing the school, he said, well, why don't you teach? And I'm like, okay. Cause I felt even though I hadn't gone to culinary school yet, I had the ability to teach cooking, I believe, because, and I write about this in my book, because there's a little bit of story with all these recipes that in high school, we used to have to do these for Mr. Smith's honors English class. We used to have to do something called how to do it projects. And it was like, I guess it was to train us to be concise or to be better speakers. And people would say, like, this is how you build like a nuclear reactor. This is how you build a rocket. This is how you do electro, whatever, all these scientific things. Yeah, and I'm like, well, this is how you make fudge. And I would and so I would do that. And so Edward called the classes Vegan Cooking for Health and Good Looking. And so the other thing that people maybe don't realize, because I'm not going to do this on YouTube, because one, I would get a copyright strike because this is not my own melodies. But I used to want to be a songwriter, and I spent some time in Nashville. So I can write lyrics. I can't write music. So I do a lot of song parodies to other people's songs. And so I don't do these on YouTube because, like I say, I'll get a whatever it's called. And plus, singing on YouTube is difficult. But when I do these live performances, I'll do these song parodies in between. So yeah, I think performing live is much funner than performing on Zoom.
Love it. Love it. You're just an absolute ball of energy with so many skills in so many areas. And it's always fun hanging out with you. And I really hope that people enjoyed listening to you once more and had fun spending time with you on this episode. And everyone, go support Chef AJ. Head over to grab yourself a copy of this awesome Sweet Indulgence new book that's now available. And if you pre-order before 31st of August, this will assist her with maybe getting into that New York Times bestseller. Chef AJ, thank you so much.
Thank you, Clint, and thanks for what you do. And I hope we get to be in a class again soon.